There is one simple habit that will completely change the way you play chess. It's the key to stop making those frustrating blunders and finally play games you can be proud of. It's something I have learned the hard way during my journey to becoming a 2400 rated international master, and now I'm gonna show you how it can work for you. What's up, chess player? Welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. This one simple habit will change the way you think about chess, the way you play chess, and of course, improve your results a lot. It all starts with this position. I'm playing as black, very important tournament game for me. I really need to win it to win in the entire tournament. I've played the opening pretty good, and now I'm making this move a6. Which is a good move in general for me from the perspective of what I'm trying to achieve. But the problem here is that before you make your move, you absolutely have to think what your opponent can do. And so my opponent has here the move a3, which is a very simple move, yet it's a very active one. It's creating an obvious threat of winning the bishop. I don't really want to take on c3 that easily. And my idea, like strategically, is to play bishop d6 because the bishop is great here, and I played a6 to stop the knight b5 move. Next, I want to take the pawn on c4 and play e5. That's my plan. The problem is you never play chess alone. You always have to think what your opponent can do. And white has here a beautiful opportunity, again the most active one, to play c5, attacking that bishop with the tempo, bishop goes back, and then just playing the move b4. Look at this amazing pawn structure that white has here, absolutely incredible, and the attack is coming and would be so hard to stop. It's just a huge advantage for white. So it's not enough to make a good move for yourself. You don't play in a vacuum. Chess is a psychological game where you play against your opponent. So my advice to you, and it's only gonna work if you're gonna implement this habit the right way, is to never, ever make your move without thinking what your opponent can do in response. My opponent played here the move bishop to e2, and now of course I don't give any more chances for him to use that opportunity to play a3 and to get so much space. I immediately take here on c4. So oftentimes you only have one chance and you have to use it. In order to do that, you need to understand what is your opponent's idea and how you can stop it. My opponent takes here on c4, and now I'm perfectly ready with my plan and just play bishop to d6, and that's exactly what I was aiming for. b5 square is covered, so the knight cannot go there. And if he ever plays the move e4, I'm ready to answer with e5, fighting for the center. Center is the most important part of the chessboard. But the key moment comes later. My opponent castles here, and I play the move b5. And my opponent makes here a huge mistake that basically influenced the entire game afterwards. And he makes it specifically for a reason that he doesn't have this habit of always and always thinking what your opponent can do. But first of all, whenever your opponent makes a move, you have to stop thinking for a second about all of your ideas and try to understand what is the point of this move, what is the idea, and what is a potential threat for you. In this case, it's pretty obvious the bishop is hanging. Then the next question you ask yourself, very important one, is it dangerous for me? Sometimes it might not be the case. Here it's clear the bishop is in trouble. You cannot allow yourself to lose it like that. So the next question you ask, what should I do about it? And you always start with the most active opportunities. In this case, and in most of the cases, that would be to eliminate the attacking piece, which is the pawn on b5. But unfortunately, it doesn't work for white because knight takes b5, a takes b5, bishop takes, you don't have enough compensation for the piece, just 2 pawns. By the way, you understand that only because before you play the move knight takes b5, you think what your opponent can do. Now, my opponent is not a beginner. He is like top 1% of all chess players. So he understands that. And he's making the move that seems to be the best for the bishop. He's like, okay, the bishop has to go somewhere. d3 is the best square for me to go, so I'm gonna play it. The problem with this mindset, with this whole decision-making process, is that he hasn't thought of what his opponent can do. And of course, here I'm making this move knight to b4 with a double threat, attacking both the queen and the bishop, and that is a huge problem. It's not just an exchange. I get a pair of bishops here. I'm exchanging my probably least active piece, the knight on c6, which was a little bit vulnerable now for this beautiful bishop on d3. So there is no way my opponent could have allowed that. But he did it only for a reason he has not thought about his opponent's opportunities. I know that for a fact because I asked him about that after the game. So he played queen e2, I am taking here, and he takes back. The problem is, not only he allowed me to exchange his beautiful bishop here, he also lost a lot of time because he needed to make all of those queen moves. And time is the most important resource in chess. Now, the next key moment comes after my move bishop b7. I just want to finish my development, my bishops are beautiful, and of course white has to search for an active opportunity here. If you don't do anything active here as white, you are just busted because strategically you are in big trouble. I have a beautiful pair of bishops. So the key move here, the most active move for white, is the move e4. But because my opponent already blundered one of my opportunities previously, he now didn't trust himself to play it. Because yes, he has to calculate the variations. You cannot make such a move. And frankly, remember, you should not make any move at all without thinking of your opponent's response. He was afraid of this move b4. Now the knight is under attack, and if it goes away, I'm winning the pawn on e4. So again, after you see your opponent's response, ideally you have to think, what are my next options? And that is how you continue this variation. A lot of people ask me, how long should your variation be? Well, it should normally be at least 3 moves ahead. And if you can go beyond that, it should be up to the point where there are no active opportunities anymore available for both of the sides. Checks, captures, and threats are normally those active opportunities. Of course, there are exceptions, but yeah, chess is a tough game. But at least if you focus on those 3 and your variation is at least 3 moves ahead, you are in good shape in most of the situations. Now, this position is complicated, but white has chances here. White is active. Instead, as my opponent didn't trust himself to play it, he did this move queen to b2. But that is a huge mistake because again he wastes time, he's making yet another move with the queen, and that is not great. He's not developing and he's not active, he's not going forward. This is the right strategy to find the best moves in chess, and I really want you to understand and master it, as it's going to allow you to level up your chess at basically no time. First of all, whenever your opponent makes a move, you try to understand whether it has a very dangerous threat. Then you start with the most active opportunities for yourself. What kind of moves you have, checks, captures, and threats comes first. Next, whenever you encounter a promising move that you're about to make, first think what your opponent can do in response. It's so essential. It does not mean, however, that you have to immediately refuse all of your opportunities because your opponent has some answers. Instead, you have to calculate the variations. You're making a move, what he has, does he have any checks, captures, and so on, what you can do about it afterwards, and then in the very end, you make a conclusion whether it's a good move for you or not. I understand this whole thing might be difficult, but chess is tough and you will get better with the time if you ask the right questions and try to give the answers to the best of your ability. That's the only way to improve your chess, because otherwise if you're standing like that, like a boxer, and waiting for your opponent to come, you will always lose, like my opponent does here with the move queen to e2. It's just too slow. You cannot play like that. Why? Because I'm playing here c5, I'm trying to open up the position, I have those bishops, and I basically never give him a chance to play that key move e4 anymore. He tries, he takes here on c5, and after I take it back, he plays the move e4. But now suddenly it's a mistake. Only 2 moves ago it was a great move, the key move, the most active one. Now it's a mistake. Why? Because it's all about time in chess. I am fully mobilized now in terms of my minor pieces, and I'm ready to create that counter threat. The move b4 and e5 does not really work anymore. All I can do here is just take this knight on c3, and after he takes it on f6, I take it back, and I have a beautiful position with my 2 bishops here, extra pawn, and everything is absolutely amazing for me. This video is brought to you by Chestnut. Chestnut is making amazing chessboards that allow you to play online from a real 3D board. They have high quality chessboards, nice looking chess pieces, so that you can enjoy and having fun playing it. Chestnut boards also have so many training functions that I absolutely love to use to my training, and it helps me to improve my chess every day. This is, for example, Chestnut Evo. I love to use it for my trainings, but they have so much to offer you depending on your preferences and your budget. And the best part is you can just use the promo code Journey to Grandmaster or click the link in the description to get a big discount on all of the Chestnut products. That is why my opponent plays here knight to a4, and again I have to stop all of my plans. Think what my opponent wants to do here. He is creating a threat, he's attacking the bishop. Is it dangerous for me? Yes, I absolutely cannot ignore it. What is the most active way for me to go about it? Well, I have here the move knight takes e4, which is a very active move. It's winning a pawn, and at the same time it's dealing with the threat because it protects the bishop. However, I do not automatically make it. I think what my opponent can do in response, and it turns out he's taking my bishop. Yes, I can take it back, but then I don't have my pairs of bishop's advantage, and I have wasted time, so my opponent can start creating some threats, finishing his development, and he is still in the game. Instead, I have played the move bishop to e7, which is the best move, surprisingly enough, in this position. Why? Because I am going away from his threat, so it's not possible anymore. This knight is now stupid on a4 instead of exchanging it for one of my best pieces. And the e4 pawn is still hanging, and that's a huge weakness. If he goes forward, which seems like an active move here, I can just go knight to d5. The knight is beautiful in the center. It controls absolutely everything, and there is nothing my opponent can do about it. Why bishop to e7 is the best move? Because it also prophylaxes against other of my opponent's idea to play bishop g5 and create a pin against my knight. So whenever your opponent makes a move, you actually need to understand all of his threats, not the most obvious ones. Knight a4 attacking the bishop was the most obvious one, but bishop to g5 was another threat which wasn't convenient for me. Now after bishop e7, if he does that, there is no pin, I can just grab his pawn. He plays bishop to e3 instead. He wants to give up his pawn, saying that, okay, I'm gonna get some initiative, I'm gonna create some threats. And that's, in most of the cases, the right approach. Yet I'm still taking this central pawn, it's so important, and also I'm opening up my bishop, it's beautiful now. Before doing that, of course, I have calculated my opponent's variations. Rook f to d1 seems to be the most active move because it's attacking my queen, grabbing the open file, and developing a new piece. That's what you should be aiming for. But I have an active answer here, queen to a5, the most active square for my queen, because first it's attacking the knight on a4, and second it has an opportunity to shift all the way to the king side, creating some threats there. Now my opponent plays knight to b6, creating yet another threat, trying to put pressure on me, but it's no problem, because again I have thought about what kind of opportunities my opponent has, and I simply play rook a to d8, fighting for this open file, and notice how solid everything is in my position. I basically have no weaknesses. That's what you should be aiming for. My opponent plays knight c4, he tries to continue creating those threats. And yeah, the passive approach would be just go away with the queen. But you don't want to do that. You always want to start with the most active opportunities that are available for you. Even if it seems like your queen is hanging, that's the only thing you care about. No. Yes, you acknowledge the threat, the knight is attacking, but you still start with the most active opportunities. Remember, that's the second step. Those are checks, captures, and threats. And I do have a check and a capture at the same time, rook takes d1. I don't make it immediately. I think about my opponent's opportunities, but I see that it's a good move for me. He cannot take with a rook back. That would be a desirable move, because then the a2 pawn would be hanging. So he's taken with a queen, but that's good for me. First, this queen is coming back, where it's not that active anymore, and second, this rook is not entering the game, which is also good for me. Only now I play queen to b5, another move with the tempo attacking the opponent's knight. He plays b3, and I hope at this point it's clear for you what the next black's move should be. All of our pieces are great here, doing something useful, except for this rook on f8. And ideally, you always want to invite every single piece to the party. Rook to d8, a beautiful move with the tempo, and again, creating a threat for the opponent. He plays knight f to d2. And even though technically this bishop is not under attack, it's still my best piece. I never want to allow my opponents to exchange it. So what am I doing? I'm just playing bishop all the way back to a8. It's just as active in terms of being on this diagonal, but it's in a complete safety. Well, my opponent tries to argue with that. He plays knight b6, attacking. Again, I will never allow my opponent just to exchange that bishop, because it does not have any opponent on the light squares. There is no light squares bishop for my opponent. So That is how powerful those two bishops are in the open position, which this one, because they have those beautiful diagonals to create threats for the opponent. He plays rook to c1, finally bringing this rook into the game. But as for my position, I have already optimized all of my pieces, all of them are developed, so it's time for me to create threats to go forward with my pieces. That's what I'm doing. I'm playing knight to e4 in the center of the board. Notice I don't invent any bicycles in this game, and that's the beauty of it. That's what I want you to get away out of this video. You absolutely don't need to invent something crazy to beat even such a strong opponent above 2000 ELO, top 1% of all chess players. Yet, if you are making normal, powerful moves, and if you're always aware of your opponent's threats and ideas, you make sure you take a look at what he can do, then you are good to go. So he plays here rook to c2. Again, I'm thinking how I can create problems for him. I'm calculating the variations and come to conclusion knight to c3 is the most active move. Just taking the knight with an exchange is not that active as creating a powerful threat and going forward. And that's a very, very tricky move. My opponent plays here queen to e1, the queen is hanging, and I'm playing queen to c6. That is a double threat. And because my opponent doesn't have this powerful habit, he did not realize that. Yes, he saw this immediate threat of checkmate queen takes g2. So he played the move queen to f1. But what he blundered is that queen to c6 had another threat in mind, and also a check, knight e2, which is winning the game, because you can't even take it. There is the same checkmate, and after king to h1, I can just grab this rook basically for free. Now he can take, but I have too much extra material, and my opponent resigned here. Yes, chess is tough, but if you focus on the right things, if you ask yourself the right questions, you have beautiful chances to level up your chess very fast. First, whenever your opponent makes a move, try to understand what's the idea behind that, what kind of a threat he creates, and it might be not only one threat. So focus on all of them, not the most obvious ones. And second, whenever you are about to make a move, first think about what your opponent can do in response. I want you to play your very next game, remembering those two rules and using it every single move, and then come back to the comments and tell me how great it was. If you are truly serious about massively improving your chess, in this video I have prepared for you a completely free training plan for 30 days so that you can finally achieve your chess goals.